Welcome to the MLB Slate Breakdown. I'm Jason Gilbo, JGilbo11. With me is Russell Clay at Russell J. Clay. Taking a look at some offensive weapons on tonight's MLB Slate, where we're looking for offense, what parks to target, teams, all that good stuff. On a 14-game slate, there's a lot of hitting options that kind of circulate our minds, I guess you could say.
Definitely. I mean, I think there's one really obvious sort of chalky stack, but other than that, I think there's quite a few other options as well.
Yeah, definitely. And jumping right into things, looking at the Yankees and Orioles in Camden Yards, Luis Severino, Chris Tillman on the hill. Yankees do have a Vegas total under 4, but I still think they're certainly in play for GPPs. Obviously, Tillman's a reverse splits guy. He's actually been decent against left-handers in the past, so I think that might be one of the reasons why you're not seeing so many bats on this Yankee side be kind of in play or favorable in today's spot.
Yeah, so I think maybe you look at like an A-Rod or Teixeira or something like that, so, sort of if you want to look at stacking that game. But I don't necessarily think you're looking to stack with the Yanks tonight, or even really look at a lot of the players on this bigger slate. For this game, I think you probably want to target Baltimore a little bit more. Maybe hit up the middle of that lineup or something like that against Severino.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Severino, 350 WOBA allowed to right-handers, 1.98 home runs per 9. Machado stands out to me as the popular swerve off of Donaldson, just because I expect Donaldson against the lefty to be the highest owned. But the third baseman's actually pretty stacked, and I think you kind of go a different number of ways. But Machado I like a lot. Obviously, he's cruising through so far this season. Adam Jones, Chris Davis, Mark Trumbo, kind of a couple other names to target. Machado the safer cash game play, while the others are kind of more GPP picks.
Right. Yeah. No, I like this game for tournaments. I think you might be able to hit something with A-Rod or something like that, but probably not going all in on this game,
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. Next game here, you have the Cubs and Pirates. Jake Arrieta, John Neese, over under 7, Chicago big favorites. Obviously, we're expecting the offense to come from that Cubs side. You don't expect a guy with a 1 ERA to produce a lot of popular bats on the Pirates side.
Yeah, we're looking at Cubs, if anything, here. But again, I think you mentioned with Pittsburgh, their park isn't too solid for hitters in the first place. So this might be a night to lower your exposure to Cubs hitters, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. I think they're more so a GPP play, if anything, just because a guy like Dexter Fowler, Bryant's, guys who can really get to Neese from that right side. One guy that kind of is intriguing is Addison Russell at shortstop as a cheap value play. Going to have the lefty-righty matchup. Obviously, Neese isn't a pitcher to kind of shy away from, a 335 WOBA allowed to right-handers since 2014. He'd probably be the only one, I think, just because price considered, you can deal with the park factors out there.
Right. And obviously, Pittsburgh, you're fading tonight. You didn't need us to tell you that to sort of figure that one out. But, yeah, probably looking away from them.
Oh, yeah. No, not probably, 100%.
If you put Pirates in your lineup tonight, don't ever talk to me again.
Moving on to the next game. Marco Estrada, Martin Perez out there in the Rogers Center, Rangers and Blue Jays. And you're expecting a lot of runs from this game. We were talking on the pitcher pod. Toronto hasn't been great this season. Hasn't been great against lefties as they usually are. But I'm thinking tonight's the night that they turn around, they break out of that slump a little bit.
Yeah, and our optimizer, pretty much whatever you throw in there, they're looking at Blue Jays stacks, and I'm totally with that. I think any of Saunders, Donaldson, Batista, or Encarnacion, I think you're really looking at a strong group there, 1 through 4. So that's really what I'm looking at, and that was the main stack I was talking about at the beginning. You think it'll be chalky? Probably going to be pretty chalky, right?
I think so. I mean, just because you're looking at Saunders, 3,600, very cheap. Bautista and Encarnacion and Tulo. I mean, against a lefty, it's like this is value for them, even though they haven't been great this season. But if they're below 4,500 and Encarnacion at 3,800, and at his FanDuel price, I believe it's at 34. I mean, that's a steal. I mean, I still think they're going to be a pretty chalky. They should be the top chalk stack option.
Yeah, I mean, we were just running through things before the show, and it's just funny to look back at their 2015 runs per game. I mean, 5.5 runs a game, and they're not doing anything close to that right now, but I think that potential is still definitely there. So I think you're looking at this lineup as a really strong base to cash games.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. I think guys like Bautista just fit right in. You have no problem working them into an Arrieta or Matt Harvey style lineup at all.
Absolutely.
So, and on the other side, I mean, Marco Estrada, his only issue is giving up home runs. That's the only thing that I have a problem with. Looking at two right-handers, 1.31 home runs per nine since 2014. Lefties, 1.42 home runs per nine. But the weighted on-base average has been below 330. It's down, near 300, 310. So overall, I mean, he's been a decent pitcher. That's just been his struggle, is keeping the ball in the yard. So the Rangers bats, I think you can look, at GPP options. I won't be too heavy on them just because it's a 14-game slate.
Yeah, that's fair. I think you can look at some of these guys, especially in the middle of the lineup, as sort of tournament options, but not really looking at them for anything more than that.
The one thing I guess you can say is, I mean, 1 through 5, they're all under 4,000 on DraftKings. That will be a cheap stack if Estrada does not pan out tonight.
Definitely. And I mean, we've seen it many times before where the chalky, like you're super confident in a team, and then for whatever reason, it just doesn't work out. So if you want to differentiate yourself, and you always do in tournaments, that's a cheap way to do it. But yeah, quite a few options like that tonight.
Yeah, I mean, you could actually plug in Harvey and Arrieta and do a Ranger stack.
So, and get some higher priced options around them too. So
that's something to consider. I mean, that could be something that really pays off tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Next game, you got Giants and Reds in Great American there, 8.5 over/under. Jeff Samardzija, John Moscott. Speaking of stacks, I love the Giants tonight, and they're actually they're a pricier stack than Toronto. So I think they might be a little bit lower owned. I still think bits and pieces of them are going to be higher owned, I guess you could, but altogether, I think it's going to be pretty low.
Yeah, our optimizer is super high on Posey, and for good reason. I do like him. Pence is solid. Again, I guess it depends on how you feel about Samardzija for the Reds, but I don't think you're normally targeting them either way. But yeah, no, I do like the Giants tonight.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you there. Moscott hasn't shown any ability to get guys out in the majors. Looking at more so kind of those lefties guys, but obviously guys like Pence and Posey are just kind of those elite bats there. But obviously in limited sample size, a 359 will be allowed to lefties with Moscott. My beef with Samardzija is since 2014, 328 will be allowed. He's continuously gotten worse to lefties. You and I were kind of debating him on the pitcher pod. I just think Great American Ballpark kind of scares me off him a little bit. And I don't think the Reds, I think guys like Joey Votto and Jay Bruce are actually, I think Votto's a decent cash game option tonight, and Bruce a GPP play.
Well, now I wouldn't disagree, but I also add in college receiving touchdowns and yards per reception into my projections. So once you include that, I'd say Samardzija is a pretty nice option there, Jason.
You got me because I'm a Notre Dame guy, and he went to Notre Dame, and but still, you know what?
Obviously, we're joking, but I think that's a fair point for Samardzija. He's definitely not bulletproof.
Yeah, I mean, and really, you're only looking at two guys on this Reds team. I'm not targeting a whole 1 through 5 against them.
Right.
So, but yeah, I mean, really, we're looking at that Giants side. I think they're a great stack. I wrote them up in the stacking article, so we can kind of go into deeper reasoning why. This next one, I mean, we're really looking at 3 stacks in a row here for me. Mets and Braves, over under 7, so it's not extremely high scoring, or at least it looks, but still the Mets have an over under team total over 4. Obviously not picking on Harvey, but Matt Whistler, an interesting stacking candidate against.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you like 1 through 4 and maybe even 1 through 5 for the Mets here tonight. Projected to get 4.5 runs, somewhere around there, 4 to 5 runs. And I think when you look at Conforto, he's only 3,700 on DraftKings, so that's definitely an interesting place to start.
Yep, that's definitely a good call there. Whistler, a 408 WOBA allowed going back to last year, 1.96
Oof,
home runs per nine. Yeah,
that's
as you
rough.
mentioned, I mean, 1 through 5, it's certainly in play. As you mentioned, Conforto stands out as a great value. Lucas Duda is a guy who I'll be looking at a lot tonight.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, overall, I think the Mets are another stack that I'm a fan of. And as far as the Atlanta side goes, nope.
Yeah, and I mean, as you mentioned with the last few games, I think you could throw a stack in there and maybe get one or two guys from this game as well. Maybe get a Conforto and Duda, and they aren't even that expensive. I think you could definitely pull off lineups like that tonight.
Yeah, I mean, you could really actually look at like a lineup like a Blue Jays stack and mix and Conforto.
Hmm.
Like you could easily put a core around the Mets, Giants, and Blue Jays tonight.
Yeah, and
So
that could be really fun.
yeah, I mean, because they come in really as three of my favorite offenses.
Hmm.
So, um, and with Matt Harvey, we said not really targeting them. Next game, we were kind of looking at this one on the pitcher pod just because it's two lefties, and we were talking about looking at some hitters from this game. That's Diamondbacks and Marlins, Justin Nicolino, Patrick Corbin, over under of 8, and there are some lefty matchers on this side. Both Vegas run totals are fairly high. This one actually may have jumped
Hmm.
as far as a total goes, but overall, I think this one's actually going to be kind of sneaky tonight.
Yeah,
Hoping.
obviously you have Stanton and Goldschmidt who are super expensive, but when you look at the rest of at least the Diamondbacks lineup, they only have two guys over 4K. And for a team projected for 4 or 5 runs, definitely some intriguing guys there.
Yeah.
And pretty much the same thing on the Marlins side.
Yeah, definitely. I think Corbin, um, hasn't been really that great. I mean, he has his moments, but overall, since 2014, 352 WOBA allowed, a 35% hard ball rate to right-handers.
Mm.
Um, and this Marlins team does have plenty of options. I think you mentioned Stanton, Martin Prado, Marcelo Ozuna, and JT Realmuto catching behind the dish are all intriguing options on tonight's slate.
Definitely.
So, and then with those Diamondbacks, you mentioned the guys under 4,000, Gene Segura, Brandon Drury. I love Drury if he's hitting second again tonight, and then Wellington Castillo. So I think there are actually a lot of good kind of split guys in that lineup that you can target.
Hmm.
So
Definitely.
next game here, you got Dodgers and Rays. Scott Kazmir versus Matt Moore. Over under 7.5. This one I don't expect a ton of offense, but I think there are a couple guys that stand out to me. On the Dodgers side, you likely will see Kike Hernandez step up into the top spot. This guy has hit lefties well, worthy of a GPP look against Moore.
Hold on. Can we need an alarm sound? Woo, narrative street. Casimir versus the Rays.
Oh, come
Um,
on.
no, but I mean, obviously he's been struggling this year. So I mean, a Ray stack probably be a little lower owned. And I think maybe a nice way to get a cheap few guys in there. I mean, when you look at like Geyer and Pierce, they're super cheap. So and I like Longoria tonight too. So I think you could figure out something there and get some pretty nice value.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely with you there. And as far as the stack goes, I mean, that's actually pretty cheap, and you can fit guys like Bautista around them
Hmm.
and all those other guys. Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, Geyer hits lefties well. Longoria too. Pierce, Forsythe is a guy who I really like leading off against the lefty. Yeah, and with Kazmir's struggles so far this season, I think the Rays are playable in cash and GPPs. I think
Hmm.
Longoria is kind of more of a price considered option in cash games, just because maybe you don't want to pay all the way up for a Donaldson or a Machado. You can kind of take a slight discount there.
Right.
So
And we talked about more on the pitcher pod that you should check out. But he's pretty solid. So maybe not a day to sort of target the Dodgers here, even at pretty reduced prices.
yeah, no, I agree. I mean, Puig 3,900. Kike Hernandez might be the only one who I'll take a GPP flyer on, but yeah, I'm definitely with you there. It's a pretty low run total, so not really targeting any Dodgers.
Mm.
Next one here, you have the Red Sox and White Sox, and this was one that also on the pitcher pod was we were kind of going back and forth on. And while you can make arguments for both the arms here, you can also
Hmm.
make arguments for the bats, and that's what we'll be doing here. Um, I think this is a great GPP game to look at because the over-under is low because the arms have been quality this season. But there are some guys in good spots if you just look at larger sample sizes.
Yeah, and I think it, and I guess we'll go back to NFL because this is how I translate it in my brain. But I look at this, it's either going to go one way or the other, and I think it's going to be extreme for Quintana. I think he's either going to do really well or he's just going to get beat up by this Red Sox lineup. So I think making two lineups, one with Quintana and fading the Red Sox, and maybe one with a little mini stack of the Red Sox here. I think those are two plausible options. I'm leaning more Quintana doing well tonight, but you can't ignore the potential downside here. So Bogarts, Ortiz, even a Hanley or something like that. I think those are all in play.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of look at these DraftKings prices and they're cheap. Betts 4,500, Pedroia 4K, Bogarts or Ortiz and Hanley both under 4K, and a guy like Chris Young who hit lefties really well last year in New York is going to be into the lineup. So you do have some above average to top option elite right-handed bats in this lineup. Obviously, Quintana is coming off a 10 strikeout performance against Toronto, so it's not like we're completely all over the Red Sox, but overall, right. I think this could be an option where maybe he comes back down to earth just a little bit.
Right, and this is definitely a tournament game, not a cash game. So no Quintana in cash, fellas.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Look at the White Sox. I mean, I was kind of looking at BVP just against R.A. Dickey, who's kind of hit well. And I mean, as a team rolling them out, they've all hit over 300 against Dickey. As far as the team goes. Yeah, but I'm talking in comparisons to the knuckleballer.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, but overall, I mean, that's what I'm looking at. And Abreu has decent success against knuckleballers. It could be something, obviously, it's a GPP thing because Wright's been pretty solid so far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an interesting point. So definitely someone to look at there. But what are you thinking with the White Sox? Is this more tournament players or are you actually looking at them? I know the optimizer liked Rollins too. He's pretty cheap tonight.
Yeah, I think as a kind of a punch shortstop, he's not a bad option. Abreu's kind of the guy who catches my eye because he's done some damage off Dickey in the past. And if Wright's knuckleballer leaves anything up, Abreu obviously struggling this season, but could certainly be in play. But definitely all GPP only.
Mm-hmm.
So next one here, you got Angels and Brewers. Nick Tropiano versus Guara there. Over-under of 9. Obviously, it's a friendly park for both sides of the plate, and I'm not necessarily looking at many of those Brewers bats just because I think Tropiano, we talked about him being maybe a cheap option. I don't think he gets crushed tonight, and I just don't think any of these guys really pay off their price tag. And we saw Braun, he might be out on tonight's lineup.
I think that's a good way to put it. I don't think he's going to get crushed. That's like exactly how I feel about it. Like he's going to be all right. It's going to be all right, Tropiano. In terms of the Angels, they're all super expensive. And I don't know if it's a way. It just seems like they're going to be lower owned, especially a Pujols who's coming in at 4,900 on DraftKings. That's super expensive for what he's been doing so far this year.
Yeah, I think it's a different story from site to site. The Angels are a cheaper stack you can look at, but as far as DraftKings, they are expensive. I mean, Trout 5,400, he's always up there. Mm-hmm. Cole Calhoun's the name I always see down in the 4,000, 3,500 range, but 4,900, that's insane. But obviously it's a great matchup and a great ballpark. I won't be looking at them in cash games. I think GPP is the only way I feel about them tonight.
Yeah, and I don't think you want to invest too heavily even in tournaments, but maybe throw one lineup of those three in there just to be really different, but not too high exposure for sure.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you there. Next one here, you got Twins and Astros over-under of 8.5. Colin McHugh versus Alex Meyer. This Houston offense hasn't been what it was last year. It hasn't been great. Makes them kind of unplayable in cash games. And I just think price-wise on DraftKings, FanDuel, they've come down a little bit. I don't mind them there. But 5,500 for Altuve, that's way too steep. Correa, 5K. Springer, 4,900. I can't get behind these guys at these prices. I know it's a nice matchup. It might make for a sneaky contrarian stack because the prices are high. But on a full slate, I kind of can't get back behind it.
Yeah, again, it's kind of similar to the Angels where I think they're overpriced and I don't like the value. Maybe if you want to be totally different, but I'm probably staying away from them tonight in general.
Yeah, definitely. One guy that does catch my eye is Colby Rasmus. Struggling lately, but has had a power surge here to start the season. He would be the only guy I'd maybe take a flyer on because the price isn't too bad.
Mm-hmm.
He does have tremendous upside.
Right.
So, yeah, overall, on the Twins side, are you looking at anyone there?
Not really.
Yeah, it's a game that has potential, but it's kind of like you don't feel great about it.
There's just so many other games that I like. So if I'm not feeling too hot about this lineup, I'm probably just not going to touch it.
Yeah, and I think Danny Santana at 2,300 leading off is probably the only option that I might take, just because he's super cheap. That's the only punt play I would look at tonight.
Mm-hmm. That's a good call.
Next one here, you have Royals and Nationals over under of 8. Tanner Roark, Chris Young. I'm not a big fan of the bats there in the Royals side, but overall Roark 312 WOBA allowed to left-handers since 2014, so not great, but not a bad arm either. I think I'm looking more so to attack Chris Young on that left side with Daniel Murphy and Bryce Harper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I'm definitely looking at. I don't think the upside's there necessarily for the Royals tonight, but I do like this Washington offense, even though sort of Vegas doesn't necessarily like it that much. I think this is, I mean, Chris Young just loves giving up homers sometimes, so I think this could be an intriguing lineup to sort of exploit that.
Yeah, definitely, and I mean, no better guy to hit a homer than Bryce Harper right now. So,
right.
I mean, he's kind of a close. Curious to see as the Vegas lines come out for player props to see what his odds are to hit a homer tonight. I gotta see that they're number one. But I mean, overall, Young, as you mentioned, 1.53 home runs per 9 to lefties since 2014. So he does give up homers, and kind of Murphy's the other name that I do like at that price tag as well.
Yeah.
Next game here, we do have Phillies and Cardinals. Aaron Nola versus Michael Wacha. Over under a 7. I think both these arms are quality. This is just kind of a stay away game for hitters for me.
Yeah, this was pretty simple. I'm staying away from this one. I don't see much upside, even on an individual player basis. I just don't see much.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely with you there. We can skip that one. And I kind of feel exactly the same way about Mariners and Athletics. Sasashi Wakuma, Sonny Gray, over under a 7.5. Well, what's going on in the noggin there, Russ? What do you got going on? What are you cooking up?
Iwakuma's really struggled this year. The A's are super cheap. You see where I'm going here?
Yeah, I mean, you love your cheap stacks. I know that.
I don't know. He's just been really mediocre this year, and I don't think he's a horrible pitcher, but I think he's sort of exploitable too. So, I mean, maybe if you look at one guy from that lineup, maybe a Coco Crisp or Josh Reddick or something like that, I wouldn't be against that.
Yeah, I think Vogt's a guy I might take a shot on. Just because he's cheaper. You're playing at a weaker position like catcher. He might be the only one that kind of stands out to me there.
Fair enough.
So on the Mariners side, I'm not really looking to target anyone against Sonny Gray.
No.
So
that's a stay away.
Yeah. Rockies and Padres, Eddie Butler versus Andrew Kashner. Over under 7.5, and it's like, well, these two pitchers are horrible, bad. They're not great, but these offenses in Petco, I don't see much getting done. Once again, the Rockies' prices are still cheaper than what they usually are. I think they might be a one or two guys that I might take a shot on just to be completely different tonight.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't like this game either. Again, we mentioned 3 really strong games early on, and just these games don't provide the same upside. So I'm probably staying away from this game as well.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely with you there. I guess the one guy that might stand out to me is just Carlos Gonzalez for that cheap price tag. Kashner, 339 will be allowed to lefties, 1.12 home runs per 9. Guys like him and Charlie Blackmon might be the only ones that maybe I get. Just maybe if I'm building multiple lineups, one of them finds their way into my lineup.
Definitely.
That's about it for me. But yeah, I'm with you. I mean, overall, it's pretty unappealing, those last 3 games of the night for hitters. So that's going to wrap things up here with the slate breakdown. Check out thefantasycafe.com for all our great tools and content.